Let's get into this. So, with every dividing, or every polynomial, we need to divide by some other binomial. We're going to set it up just like we would a regular division question, like a long division question. So, for example, if we were asked how many times 3 can be divided into 123, we would take this number, which is called the divisor, and we would put that out here. And we're going to take this number, which we're going to call the product, and that goes on the side. And on the top is going to be the answer to the division question, which is called a quotient. That's going to live up here. And so we're going to do the same thing here. This looks uglier, but really it's the same sort of division question. So I'm going to take my divisor of x minus 2. I'm going to put it on the outside of a big bracket like this, or big, it's not a bracket, it's a division symbol. And on the inside, it's going to live x cubed, take away 6, x squared plus 5x plus 6. All right. And similarly to a long division question, I'm going to start by asking how many times does this x go into x cubed? So when we do long division, I guess you can break it into 5 steps. We do a divide step, then a multiplication step, then we do a subtraction, and lastly, we bring down, or as people in class are calling it, drop it like it's hot. And when we get to the end, we go all the way back to the beginning again. All right, so here's the divide step. We're asking how many times can x go into x cubed, or really, what is x cubed divided by x? Or, if you prefer, what am I multiplying x by to get to x cubed? The answer to both of these is the answer to the question, how many times does x go into x cubed? And the answer to both of these questions is x squared. It goes in x squared times. That's our division step. And then we have a multiplication step. The multiplication is such that, and this is how it's different than a regular long division question, we actually have 2 terms we're going to multiply x squared by. So we're going to multiply by both of these terms. So we're going to multiply x squared by x and write that here. And then I'm going to multiply x squared by negative 2, which gives us negative 2x squared. And so that's the multiplication step. Then we do a subtraction step. So we're going to subtract both of these terms. And again, this is a slightly different variation on regular long division. We would normally subtract, but we wouldn't normally subtract 2 terms. That's one way in which dividing polynomials is a slightly different process. X cubed, take away x cubed, well, that's nothing. That's 0, I should say. But negative 6x squared, take away negative 2x squared. Well, if I think of starting on a number line at negative 6, and I'm going to take away negative 2, when I take away negativity, that makes you feel more positive. And so that means we move 2 in the positive direction to negative 4. All right, and so that means we're going to have negative 4x squared here. And that's a subtraction step, and then we move down to this bring down. We bring down our positive 5x. And then we go back to the beginning. So now we're asking a very similar question, but rather than ask how many times does x go into x cubed. We're asking how many times does x multiply into negative 4x squared. So you can think of that as a division. Negative 4x squared divided by x is equal to what? Which is really just another way of asking the question, x times what gives us negative 4x squared. And you can choose which way to look at that. And the answer to both of them, these questions, is negative 4x. Negative 4x. So we'll write a negative 4x up here. And that's the divide step. So we did bring down, and then we're moving back up to the top. So we did division. And now we're going to multiply negative 4x by both of these terms. So negative 4x times x is negative 4x squared. And negative 4x times negative 2 is positive 8x. That's the multiplication step. Then we're going to move on to subtraction. So we're going to subtract both of these. Negative 4x, take away negative 4.
Interaction. Will Daniel Jaleel please come to the lobby? Daniel Jaleel to the lobby. Thank you.
And 5x, take away 8x. That's going to be simply just moving down in the negative direction of the number line to take us to negative 3x. Subtraction done, we're going to bring down positive 6. And now we move back up to the top again. We're going to start by dividing. Lastly, we're going to divide x into negative 3x. What do we multiply x by to get negative 3x? The answer is negative 3. Then we're going to multiply negative 3, and that's the division step. Multiplication, negative 3 into x, or negative 3 times positive 2. It becomes negative 3x plus 6. And we're going to subtract both of those. It's a multiplication step down. We're doing a subtraction. And when we subtract these, we end up with 0 because these are the exact same terms. And so this is the remainder. So this tells us that x cubed minus 6x squared plus 5x plus 6 is really equal to x squared minus 4x minus 3. You know what? Actually, I want to put the divisor first. It actually doesn't really matter because it doesn't matter what order you multiply things in. I just like to try to be consistent with what we were doing in class. Minus 3, like that. And there's no remainder. So we would call this, again, the product. And that's equal to the divisor times the quotient plus the remainder. And some people call this the P equals dq plus r form of a polynomial division solution. But what's key here is to recognize that this is testable, just like any division question is testable. If I say 8 divided by 2 is 4, I can test that. I can test it by multiplying 2 times 4 and make sure it gives me 8, and it does. So I can multiply my number that's going in, my x minus 2, by my answer, and it should give me the original bigger polynomial. And so that's something I could test if I felt like it. It isn't in this case, but if this was important, like it was an assignment or something like that, I might go back and just expand this back out to test. You know, maybe we'll do that. Let's just test. Let's say we'll take x minus 2, x squared minus 4x minus 3, and we're going to multiply x into all these terms. So it's going to give us x cubed minus 4x squared minus 3x minus 2x squared plus 4x plus 6, and then we have some like terms here and here. So that gives us an overall expression of x cubed minus 6x squared plus 1x plus 6. Uh-oh, that's not good. So I suppose we must have made a mistake somewhere. Oh, man. Where could we have made a mistake? Let's just go through this quickly. X cubed, negative 4x, negative 3x, negative 2x squared, plus 8x. That should be plus 8. Okay, cool. And so that actually means a negative 3 plus 8 is actually positive 5x. And then we are correct. And of course I would add 0. Because that was the remainder. The idea is when we add that remainder to this product of these two, it gives us the original statement. Of course, adding 0 doesn't change anything. All right, cool. Let's move on to question 2. So for question 2, again, we're going to start out very similarly to the last one. I'm going to go a little bit faster this time. So if you have skipped this video because you aren't sure really how, or pardon me, if you skipped to this question because you aren't sure really about how to approach this, I'd really encourage you to go back and watch the first question video because we spent about 10 minutes on that one. We're going to go a little bit quicker through this one with the assumption that by this time you understand the general process. You may have made like a little negative mistake if you're checking the video at this stage. All right, so let's find out. 4x into 8x cubed. I can multiply 4x by 2 to get 4 times 2 gives you 8. And x squared times x gives x cubed. And I would multiply those through and I would get 8x cubed and plus 2x squared. I'll subtract, and that gives us 0 minus 44x squared. And I'll bring down an x. Then I'll ask how many times is 4x going to negative 11x squared? It would be negative 11x times. I'll multiply through and I get negative 44x squared minus 11x. Those are again both going to be subtracted. It's going to turn us to 0 and 1x plus 11x is 12x. And the 3 comes down. And then I say, how many times is 4x going to 12x? Well, it goes in 3 times. 3 4x's give us 12x. Then I multiply 3 by both of these terms. And I get 12x plus 3. Subtract. Again, we get 0 as a remainder. So, as a final statement, I could say that x cubed, pardon me, 8x cubed minus 42x squared plus x plus 3 is equal to 4x plus 1 times 2x squared minus 11x plus 3 plus 0. And again, I have a product, and that's equal to the divisor times the quotient plus the remainder. All right. Great. So let's move on to question 3. All right. So question 3 says, well, we're going to take that number 2x minus 3 and put it here. And I will write out my ax power 4 minus 4x cubed. But then I realize we end up skipping an x squared term. So I'm going to add in 0x squared. And I'm going to take away 12x, and then take away 9. All right. 2x goes into 8x raised to the power 4, 4x cubed times. Multiply this by both terms, and I get 8x to the power 4 minus 12 x cubed. I'll take those away. Get 0 here, and 4 minus negative 12 is like 4 plus 12. Negative 4 plus 12. Negative 4 plus 12 is 8x cubed, and I'll bring down 0x squared. 2x goes into 8x cubed, positive 4x squared times 4x squared times 2x gives us 8x cubed minus 12x squared. We're going to take those away, and we get 0 here from these terms, as we tend to always do, and 0 take away negative 12 is like 0 plus 12, which is 12. And we're going to bring down negative 12x. 2x goes into 12x squared. 6x times 2x is 12x squared. 6x times negative 3 is negative 18x. And we end up with 0. Negative 12 take away negative 18 is negative 12 plus 18, or 6x. Minus 9, and lastly we say, okay, well, 2x goes into 6x 3 times. So then 3 times 2x gives us 6x, and 3 times negative 3 gives us negative 9. And when we subtract them, we get a remainder of 0. Okay, so that means that 8x power 4 minus 4x cubed minus 12x minus 9, that's all equal to 2x minus 3 times 4x cubed plus 4x squared plus 6x plus 3. All right, and then we'll move on to question 4. Question 4 asks about an area. It says the area of this shape is 3x squared plus 8x minus 60, which is to say that the area is equal to the length times the width, right? That's one thing we know about areas. And so we overall know that the area is 3x squared plus 8x minus 60, and that's equal to some number times some other number. And the length in this case is x plus 6. So we know 3x squared plus 8x minus 60 is equal to, what was it, x plus 6 times w. And I need to know how to solve for w. So I have two options. Option 1 is I could factor. I could actually factor this expression just using basic quadratic factoring skills as a trinomial. However, when I do that, I have to multiply 3 by negative 60, and I have to find numbers that multiply to negative 180. So things need to add to 8 but multiply to negative 180. And I know negative 180 has a lot of factors. Oh, incidentally, I think I might have figured out what those two numbers are in this case. But let's pretend I didn't. So I could also use long division, or use long division of polynomials. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to say, okay, to solve for w, I could divide both sides by x plus 6. And w is going to be whatever I get when I divide these two. So I can say, okay, that's my divisor, and that's my product. And so we can write the x plus 6 on the outside of a set of brackets, and 3x squared plus 8x minus 60 out here. Say, okay, x goes into 3, and whatever answer we get, that's going to be equal to w, right? So x goes into 3x squared 3x times. I'll multiply 3x by x and get 3x squared plus 18x. Subtract these, and we get negative 10x minus 60. X goes into negative 10x negative 10 times. Negative 10 times x is negative 10x. Negative 10 times 6 is negative 60. And you can see that I subtract these and I get 0 remainder. Okay. So overall, that means that 3x squared plus 8x minus 60 is all equal to x plus 6 times 3x minus 10. And that is the area, the length, and the width. So the width is equal to 3x minus 10. Now, I could test that by multiplying these back through, or I could test it another way by solving it a different way by factoring. I might do that as well. I think I'm just going to move on to question 5. So lastly, we have question 5. We have a big diagram here. We have a prism. Okay. And it has a volume of 24x cubed minus 2x squared minus 31x minus 12. And I know that that's equal to 2x minus 1 times 3x minus 4 times something else. So I know my volume is equal to length times width times height. And this volume, 24x cubed minus 2x squared minus 31x minus 12 is all equal to, well, I know the length is 2x plus 1. I know my width is 3x minus 4, but I don't know my height. Okay. This is one where I can't just use regular factoring in order to determine the last term. So I'm going to have to use another trick. We're going to have to use our long division. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, maybe I'll just divide both sides by 2x plus 1. Let's just see what happens there. Because I'm going to eventually just try to isolate h. Okay. So that means that this should be the same expression, really, just rewritten as this. And whatever the product is, whatever the quotient is, should be equivalent to 3x minus 4 times h. Okay, so I'll just find out what the quotient is. 2x into 24x cubed, that's 12x squared, minus 24x cubed, plus 12x squared. And we'll subtract those. 0 minus 12, so it becomes negative 14x squared minus 31x. Okay, then 2 goes into negative 14x squared, negative 7x times, and I multiply negative 7x by 2x, and 1, and I get negative 14x squared minus 7x. And then I subtract these, I get nothing, and then negative 31 minus negative 7, that's plus 7, which means it's going to be negative 24x. Did I get that right? Yeah, I think I did. And then 2x goes into negative 24x, negative 12 times. So negative 12 times 2x is negative 24x. I did it again. Negative 12 times negative 1 is negative 12. I subtract these. I get 0 as a remainder. Okay, so what that means is that, so therefore, 2x squared minus 7x minus 12. No, let's say, therefore, 24x cubed, take away 2x squared, take away 31x, take away 12, divided by 2x plus 1, that's all equal to 12x squared minus 7x minus 12. Now, we already said that this was also equal to 3x minus 4 times h. So this then must all be equal to 12x squared minus 7x minus 12 has to be equal to 3x minus 4 times h. So I still have an isolated h, so now I'm going to divide both sides by 3x minus 4. And that's going to solve for h. So lastly, we're going to use some polynomial some polynomial long division to find that last side length. So I'm going to, again, rewrite this as in a division symbol. And I get 12x squared minus 7x minus 12. And I say, okay, 3x times 12x squared is 4x. 4x times... Did I say 3x times 12x squared is 4x? 3x goes into 12x squared 4x times. 4x times 3x is 12x squared. 4x times negative 4 is negative 16x. And I get 0, negative 7, take away negative 16 is positive, like adding 16. So negative 7 plus 16 is 9x minus 12. 3x goes into 9x 3 times. And then I say I take away 9x, take away 12. And again, I get a remainder equal to 0. Okay, so that means that really, let's take it all the way back. What we just found is you just found h. H was this number divided by this number. It's the answer, the quotient to this, which is 4x plus 3. So therefore, 4x plus 3 equals h. And furthermore, the volume, which was equal to length times width times height, is really, I could rewrite that. I could say 24x cubed minus 2x squared minus 31x minus 12 is equal to the length, 2x plus 1, times the width, which is 3x minus 4, times the height, 4x plus 3. And that, just so we're clear, is the volume, the length, the width, and the height.